Okay, good evening, everybody. I think it's about 6:30, time to start the Mills River Planning Board. Would you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, we have two new board members to be sworn in. So I think at this time, I'll turn it over to Arlie and Patty to do it.
If Mr. Cole and Mr. Kimsey would go to the podium, please.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Your name.
I, Michael Cole,
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
solemnly and sincerely swear
for the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
And I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
which are or may be established for the government thereof.
which are or may be established for the government thereof,
And that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend
and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
So help me
So
God.
help me God.
I state your name.
I, Michael Cole,
Further solemnly swear that I will execute the office of planning board member
further solemnly swear that I will execute the office of Planning Board Member
for the town of Mills River, North Carolina,
for the town of Mills River, North Carolina,
without prejudice, favor, affection, or partiality,
without prejudice, favor, affection, or partiality,
to the best of my skill and ability.
to the best of my skill and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay, if you two new members would take your respective seats, we have two members, folks, Billy Kimsey and Mike Cole. And are there, you all have a copy of the agenda. Are there any adjustments or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, okay. All of you were transmitted an electronic copy of the minutes, I believe. Does anyone have any comments on any changes to the minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay. Any public comment? No public comment. And I don't think we have any old business. I have something I want to say and then we'll get into the new business, I guess you would say. I came to Mills River about 17 years ago, not too long after it was granted a charter as a town. I was really excited about this town and started looking at ways I could possibly be an active part of the town. So I started attending council meetings on a regular basis. And I've missed very few of those council meetings. About 10 years ago, a little over, I think, I decided that the planning board would be a great place to serve and work to fulfill what I understand was the main concern of the planning board, and that is to control the growth and maintain the rural atmosphere. I have only missed, I think, a couple of meetings in those 10 years. My understanding is that the state required the planning board be established under the original charter so as to provide a wide range of opinions in coming to a solution and recommendation to the town council, who of course has the final decision. To do that, I feel it is my responsibility to try to convince the other members of the planning board of my position and to listen to their opinions and finally come to a solution in the best interest of the citizens of Mills River for recommendation to the town council. I said all that to say this. During all this time, I don't recall the words it's political, used in any council meeting. However, in a recent meeting to justify censoring a planning board member, that is exactly what one council member stated. So now I would like to move on to the business of electing a new planning board chair. I would like to state I am not a candidate, so I will open the meeting for nominations for chairman of the planning board.
And just a quick note for our new members, please make sure you're using your microphones to turn them on, hold the button on the top. To mute yourself to avoid static, because our cameras automatically go to you when it hears noise. Just press the top once and it'll mute yourself. These microphones are also very sensitive based on the direction they're pointing. So the best place is to put it right below, facing up to your mouth. Thank you.
Do I have a nomination for chairman of the planning board?
As I was helping a new member here to clarify, I'm checking things off for our agenda. We did get through public comment.
Yes.
Sorry,
Mhm.
get a microphone hooked up here.
Yeah.
Keep track.
Mhm.
Sure, I'll go. I'm sure there's other opinions here. Not to rehash anything, but I want to say, you just said 7 people that run this board are here for one reason only, give their opinion. I give my time and energy and, mental, strain for free. But what's being asked of me is my opinion. So the person that gets tasked with being the chair of rallying 6 other people's opinion, they better have a strong opinion. Not from a place of, arrogance or anything, but from a place of, confidence and conviction in their efforts. With that said, I take this position pretty seriously. Of the chair, I personally don't have enough experience to put my own name in that hat yet, but I did make some phone calls this past week. To a few of you sitting here. Hope I didn't break any rules. One at a time, no quorum, no collusion. Disclosed that I was talking to other people. Each person knew who I was talking to, and they were all one-on-one. So my objective there was to gain information, I guess, to hear what you thought about this position. The question I posed to town council last week, tell us what you think the position's supposed to do. Give us a little guidance, and I wanted to hear from a few of you on that, and of course, gauge willingness. And Jim, for the record, I think you could do this. Fully qualified, fully capable. I said that to you one-on-one the other day. I want to say that again here. But I do respect and appreciate that. That's not on your agenda right now to take that on. With that said, we are very fortunate that in my opinion, we have more than one capable person. I'd like to formally nominate Jeff Moore as the chair of the Town Mills River.
I have a nomination of Jeff Moore for chairman and a second. All in favor? Aye. So Jeff will be. Well, all
Took
right.
My nomination away from me.
So now we come to a point
Thank
to nominate a co-chair. Do I have a nomination for a co-chair?
Nominate you, Jim.
I have a nomination of myself, Jim Foster, and a second for co-chair. Do I have any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. I'll take it. All right, so I guess we got a new chairman. It's time for me to turn it over to him, right? You want to come over here and take this place? We'll swap, or you want to do it from there?
I would be fine with doing it from here for tonight.
Okay,
And that
you
way
got it.
we don't have to move and I don't risk tripping over something and falling on camera.
Jeff, my first request, can we get the town to bust my chops when I don't unmute? Feel free to interrupt me if I'm talking and have this.
Is it even on?
No, it
No.
wasn't.
Okay.
See the difference?
It did, yeah.
So, sorry.
It's quite all right. Okay, well, thank you for your confidence and support. I'm honored. I'll do my best. I need a lot of help, need a lot of guidance. And I certainly will appreciate, any advice, any guidance. And it is for Mills River. What can we do to make this place where we all love and, call home? Keep it Mills River. Grow responsibly. Okay, so on that note, we can move on to new business, further new business, and I believe we have the draft bike and ped plan. Mr. Malachek?
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. So over the past couple of years, the town has been developing with NCDOT consultants our first ever bicycle and pedestrian plan, which is called Go Mills River. We did this by applying to a grant through NCDOT that helps local governments develop these types of plans. And we were selected for that in 2020 and actually started the work with the consultants in 2021. And these plans are really not looking at specific projects in town, but especially Mills River being in a state where we're growing rapidly. But due to our large size, we have disconnected nodes or communities with not interconnected pedestrian or bicycle facilities besides our roads that are meant for vehicles. This is a great place and a great time to get engaged in this work. So again, the plan is meant to be a comprehensive strategy to expand bicycle and pedestrian opportunities for the community in the future and looks at a 15-20 year horizon for planning and construction of projects, and addresses everything from facilities, programs, policy changes, and again, design guidelines for specific projects that were informed by both the steering committee, council, and our residents. So just a little background, especially for our new members. So in May of 2021, that's when we had the kickoff meeting with the NCDOT assigned consultant, which is traffic planning and design based out of Asheville. Committee members were appointed by council later in the fall. And then over the next year, the NCDOT consultant had multiple meetings with the bicycle and pedestrian plan committee members to help shape the goals of the plan and specific project ideas. We also did an online survey. There was a website that was distributed to you, which originally had some of the survey questions on it. And then we did also some in-person public engagement sessions, I think both at the park and at some stakeholder locations in the community. Through all of that, the consultants developed a draft version of the bicycle and pedestrian plan. Town staff is still reviewing it, so I'll just say, there are some typos in here. Those have been called out already, but really we wanted to bring this back to the planning board. It's not formally required by the grant or NCDOT's process, but again, because this is commonly the work of the planning board, we wanted y'all's opinion and to also get a recommendation of approval for town council when it's ready to be presented to them. It is a large document. It's 125 pages. So again, there's no rush to this. We're just here to get your feedback and to pass that on to the consultants to incorporate into the plan. And I'll just say this outright. If this takes 2 meetings to tackle, no pressure, no rush. Let's make sure we get through this and do it right and get the plan in a good place to present to council the final draft version. So the plan is broken up into 5 sections. We have the introduction, which reviews the purpose, vision, and goals of the plan. The current conditions section analyzes our current bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and use in the town, which is limited, as well as town demographic and background information. And then the network plan section actually discusses feedback from the community and then specific projects that were identified through engaging with the community and the bike ped planning committee. And then the final sections, recommended programs and policies, and the implementation are self-explanatory. So again, this is just a starting point for the town to develop a network for walking and biking. Again, we're surrounded by a lot of natural assets, which I think brings a lot of people to Mills River, but those assets and communities are currently disconnected. So again, many of the project recommendations identified in the plan just right now are lines on the map, and this is really about identifying high-level concepts for planning for projects for the future. None of this is meant to be a final plan that this is what the town's dedicating itself to for pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, but it's just a starting point for us. One thing I wanted to highlight, and I am going to go through a real short PowerPoint presentation just to try and guide the discussion. NCDOT adopted a complete streets policy in 2009, which was updated in 2019. And basically what the policy does is it directs DOT engineers to incorporate multimodal infrastructure, which is other forms of infrastructure besides vehicles on roads, so bicycles, pedestrians, et cetera, into DOT state roadway projects. So one example of the importance of having a plan like this is that if we do have infrastructure or projects identified on an adopted bike and ped plan, we can actually have NCDOT incorporate those projects into future roadway projects, again, when they're aligned in the same area, and that's at little to no cost to the town. If we don't have a plan, that's a whole different story, and the town would basically bear the burden of constructing those projects. So again, where we are, you know, in our point of growth, this is really important because we do have some projects coming down the pipeline. I will say the Haywood Road widening project already includes, I can't remember if it's an 8 or 10 foot wide multi-use side path, but that is included as part of that project. And adopting a plan like this will allow us to be able to extend our pedestrian and bike infrastructure into the future, but with less impact on the taxpayer. So again, my recommendation, and again, this is no pressure to for the planning board to make a recommendation tonight, but staff recommends approval of the bike ped plan with any changes and edits identified by staff. And we found that it's consistent with objective 7.1 of the Making Mills River Comprehensive Plan, 7.2 and 7.4, which all have to do with transportation infrastructure. So let me shift gears real quick and pull up the PowerPoint. There we go. So again, I don't plan to talk throughout this. I just want to use it as a guide to inform our discussion and kind of break the plan apart into chunks that y'all would want to talk about. So let's just dig into it. So again, we're here to discuss the plan document. Again, it is draft form, and we're looking for your comments to give to the consultants for additional input. I covered some of this already, but again, Mills River, although we have, you know, natural and cultural assets, they're disconnected. So we don't have a network where people can walk or bike easily from place to place. Streets are very much designed around the car. And while car ownership in Mills River is high, that does not include everyone. Obviously, with a population that's slightly older, some people age out of their cars. And again, we want to be inclusive of all people, no matter how they get around. I kind of covered this already. Why is this important? Because of the NCDOT Complete Streets policy and basically setting the stage for the future of the town and building out this type of infrastructure. I'm just going to skip this over. Again, the ultimate goal is to have the planning board recommend approval of the plan to town council. But again, there's no pressure to do that tonight in this meeting. I just want to make sure everyone's digested the plan and has had time to deliver comments. So I went through the overview already. We have these 5 distinct sections. And let's just start going through the introduction. Did anyone have any questions on the introduction section of the plan, the background information, anything like that?
The starting points I didn't see Mills River Park on that list. Would it be access for the park also,
Starting points for what?
for the trail?
Which trail?
You had schools down,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't see Mills River Park that connects with what you're talking about.
So the consultants, when they got the public input back and basically developed the plan and some of these example projects, they did look at these community anchors, I guess you could call them, which would be the schools, town center, the park here, and additional public facilities in larger residential communities. I believe there was one project that connected the park or Hooper Lane up to Jeffress Road into Butler Bridge Road. And that was something we heard from a lot of residents, was having a connection from the park going north, because there's no real easy way besides people just walking or running on Hooper Lane to do that. But again, with the Haywood Road widening that's coming down, the road in a couple of years, there will be a 8 to 10 foot side path as part of that project. So that's already, going to be constructed by TOT and is coming down the pipeline. Yeah,
That's what, just the
Okay.
access from here.
mhm. Yeah, I'll just say the main thing they looked at was Hooper Lane, and then we didn't pay attention to Haywood Road because it's already a project that's going to be funded or is funded. Mhm, mhm.
So we're not at this point really talking about any specific trail, if you will. We're just talking in general that these things would be nice in the future.
Correct. There are,
And I know that the 191 project out here, as you said, includes this, I think, 10-foot, which will do the same thing. And I think in the future, it's still on the future somewhere by 280 from all the way down. Well, eventually we're talking about all the way to Brevard.
mhm.
But that would be basically the same thing as what we would have coming in here on 191. So what we would need is our trails from various here, say the park or the schools, to tie in with that.
Mhm.
Is that what we're dreaming for?
I can pull up, I'd have to switch off the presentation, but there is something, and of course I just went off the page, in the actual plan itself that shows all of the proposed facilities and the community anchors, we will call it. It's on page 65 of the plan. Give me 1 second. Where is it? But you're correct. The Mills River Valley Trail, which is the proposed or concept plan to have a separated path all the way down Boylston Highway 280 to the county line, is one of the projects identified here. And again, that's something that has been a concept project with the French Broad MPO. And it's part of the, again, conceptual Hellbender trail system. But that is a project that or potential project that was included in this document.
I might add at this point, I would normally have printed out that 124 pages and have reviewed it. By the time I came, I wasn't able to do that. So I'm gonna add this comment at this point, and then I'll shut up. At this point, I'm inclined to get what information we can tonight and then postpone until the next meeting, a detailed discussion. Maybe by then we can all have because as I always say, the devil is in the details. The 4 things that Mike pointed out sound real good to me, but all the fine print, I want to see it.
Yeah, and I agree. I haven't reviewed it to a level where I could support the plan as much as I can support the concept of the plan.
Yeah,
And I agree, it's very important to have this plan and to be ready, because when opportunities come up, they're gonna pick projects that are already considered, as much complete as possible, and that's where the
and-
money goes.
and I think now is the time to because it's not finalized. It is a concept right at this point. So now would be the time to suggest things we would like to see in addition.
If that's correct, we have any comments, and we can bring them back next meeting
Mhm.
and discuss those. The roads around here are just not very friendly to bicycles.
Or cars.
Yeah, my dad used to tell me as we were driving over to Etowah, he'd say, "You see this road we're on? I helped build this road," when he was 7 years old, carrying water to the mule teams. And, they've gotten a little wider, but they haven't gotten much straighter. So, yeah, anything we can do to make it safer for bikes and pedestrians.
So the map that is on your screen right now, which is page 65 of the draft plan, shows the identified concept projects and how they connect community anchors in town. So you do see Mills River Park right here. Again, Haywood Road, that project's already happening. So that would be our main point of connection. And then you can also see one of the priority projects that was identified by the community was a connection up Hooper Lane and then to Butler Bridge. But this is the map I would point you to on page 65 of the plan that basically has everything on one page for the entire town's jurisdiction.
So when this comes to pass, is this gonna be something NCDOT is gonna be funding, or is it something Mills River will be funding?
So it all depends. Again, these are just concept projects.
Mhm.
Now, if NCDOT comes down and let's say does a project on, and this is all an example, does a project on Butler Bridge Road, being the local jurisdiction where that work is happening, and if I'm wrong, Mr. Moore, please correct me, we would basically be engaged in that process, would show them that we have an adopted transportation plan with this route identified on it, and it would be incorporated into the project. So.
Yeah, that's correct. There's things that is not really easy for us to do. That's a lot easier for the state to do. And sometimes it requires extra right of way. Well, as they're doing their design for the wider road, the improved road or bridge or whatever, they identify what needs to be done to meet our plans. And
Yeah. I agree. I just have this thing, I see it, I've seen it many, many times. Higher government, including the federal government and the state government, comes up with more or less a mandated unfunded project. So we're stuck. They have mandated the project, but you got to pay for it.
I think in this case, what they would do is it would be their project, but they would try to work it around what our desires are as much as they can. And having a plan on the books that we can refer to and go into those meetings and discuss with them, it really puts us ahead in the game.
You mentioned that it sounded like it would be like a section at a time, probably, if the state did it.
There is no implementation schedule. So I think what you're talking about is more like a town transportation plan with specific projects. This is ground zero for a town that has limited pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. So the point with this plan is to identify the needs of the community, through public input sessions, through the steering committee that members that were appointed by council, and then obviously going back to council for the final adoption of the plan. Now, these projects were ranked by citizen input, and that's how they show up in the draft plan. But there is no stipulation that they need to happen in that order. It really, and to answer Mr. Foster's question, it really is on staff to be the stewards of this plan going forward once it's adopted, and make sure we're striving to get these projects implemented. But again, it's very high level, very conceptual. There's no plan to do one project at a time. There's no plan or schedule about building out the network. It's really working with DOT. And then again, if future councils want to prioritize bike and pedestrian infrastructure, that it would be the town coming up with the funds for that. It all depends upon DOT's schedule with their road projects. If we align with that, and if it's identified in the plan, we can leverage that and get them to pay for all, if not most of it. If not, and it's something we seek to do on our own, that's where the town would bear the cost. But again, this
That's
is
what I was hoping and thinking,
Mhm.
work with the state on it. And hopefully let state funding help fund it or do the funding.
But
How far in advance do we know what projects the state is going to work on?
The state transportation improvement plan called the STIP looks out. I'll
I think
defer
it's
to
10
you.
years
10 years, okay,
or more.
yeah.
There's a certain window when it gets within that window, it's sort of locked in place and it's going to happen. And I apologize, I've forgotten that number out off the top of my head. I think it's 7 or 9 years or something like that. Once it gets to that point, but it's forecast out quite a bit. It's on the DOT website, NCDOT STIP. It's what you can search for. And it'll be the current STIP. And another place where you can give input on that is over at the MPO meetings, MPO and RPO, over at Land of Sky. It's off of Lester Highway. And they talk about updates, and I believe those meetings are available online too. So that's a good resource to keep up with what's being planned and have some input. And of course, they have the community meetings where they come in and talk about a project as part of the scoping and the planning. They take community input and they put out, sometimes they'll put out options, 2 or 3 different options, and based on community input and what's buildable, choose the option. So it's a long process, depending on the size of the road and where the money's coming from.
And again, it's about, you know, if we're going to be building these projects, it's about how we align with the state's, let's just call it development schedule for roadway improvements. So let's take North Mills River Road, for example. At some point, there's going to be restriping or resurfacing of that road, but just due to where it's going, I doubt there would be a widening or anything like that. So because of that, and because there's less likelihood of a major state roadway project being done on that road, those improvements, you know, may be more at the town's cost. But again, this is all just conceptual at this point. Yeah. Is everyone okay with this map? Okay. Guess we started over. So I guess I skipped this over. And if people haven't gone through the individual sections or don't have specific feedback, just let me know. We can go through this same presentation next time to kind of guide the discussion, but I was just trying to break it out into chunks for manageable discussions. But did anyone have any feedback about the community analysis section? Again, it's more about background demographics. But again, just opening the floor.
I mean, for me at this point, I think a summary of those 5 sections would be helpful. I haven't read the entire document either, so, and that would give me a basis to walk through that document.
So, I mean, I don't have a summary for each prepared, but basically the community analysis is going to be the background data about the town, and the consultants really dug into transportation network or lack thereof, looking at vehicle counts on roadways. So NCDOT has, they call them the AADTs, the annual average daily traffic counts. So you can see for some of our bigger intersections, like where Boylston Highway and 191 meet, we have 18,000, 20,000 plus vehicles going through there a day. So the consultants look at everything like that. They take data from trail and hiking apps and congregate that into a heat map that shows how people are actually using the roadway networks in town. Where are people biking? Where are people running? So the consultants, besides just doing background analysis on the town, did a lot of general analysis on our actual, where we are now with transportation in the town. And again, specifically with bicycle and pedestrian use. Crash data is included as part of that as well. And then the network plan is really the largest section, and that's where you will get into the individual, I'll just call them concept projects. So again, those projects were identified both by the steering committee and through public input sessions, both through the online survey, the website, and in-person public input sessions. It talks about different project ideas. Obviously, putting a sidewalk on the side of North Mills River Road all the way out to the recreation area is just going to be infeasible due to the land, due to the topography, the constrained nature of the roadway, and just cost. So for those types of areas, they look at spot improvement projects, which is, maybe widening the shoulder a little if there's enough room, having a bike lane or a rumble strip, or even just signage. Those roads are used by bikers, and increasing awareness that there are bikers out there is also an important factor. So having signs of that nature out there is considered a transportation or bike ped project as well. But again, all those concept plans are documented in this section, and basically the methodology the consultants use to get to that point. We just reviewed the network map. And then I'll just walk through these briefly, and again for the public listening online as well. So the concept plans that were proposed through everything I just mentioned, the highest ranked one would be Mills River Elementary School to the town of Mills River Park. The concept route demonstrate basically shows the road or the route going down Schoolhouse and then cutting through some of the agricultural property, Van Wingerden. Obviously, anytime you cut through property, even if it's along a property line like that, easements will need to be acquired. But again, that they were looking for the shortest route to connect the town with one of these community anchors, which is the elementary school. Another thing that was brought up was the town's property on Banner Farm Road and the possibility of that becoming a future park. So that this would include a connection, a short connection, basically north on Banner Farm Road from Schoolhouse to that property. Butler Bridge Road, people wanted improvements there just due to the nature of the road, all the curves and the topography, and also going east on Butler Bridge Road, you do exit our jurisdiction. Bicycle lanes were proposed as part of that. Also possibly, there's another project later on that is the Ocklawaha Greenway connector, but this would also be a possible connection to that as well across the French Broad River on Butler Bridge. So obviously, everyone's aware of the Acosta Trail and what's been going on with that. Henderson County, I believe, has funded their first phase for the first 6 miles of the trail. And so one thing that was brought up in the steering committee meeting was how does the town tap into that? Because this is going to be a huge resource, a huge connector across Henderson County and eventually into Transylvania County. And we're not far off from it if you just drive down Banner Farm or Ladson Road. And the community input echoed that as well. So it's not one of the top ranked projects, but it is right there solidly in the middle with having some type of connection either on Banner Farm or this next one, Ladson Road to the Acosta Trail. Now, again, our jurisdiction ends, I'll just guess about half a mile south on Banner Farm Road, but really when you hit the intersection of Banner Farm and Ladson Road, you are out of the town's jurisdiction at that point. So again, a project like this would have to be done in coordination, with our partners at Henderson County. But again, with Acosta being such a large project, we did want to pay attention to that and any possible future connections that would bring people into the heart of Mills River. And again, when connecting to an external trail like that with a high level of users, that's also bringing, tourists or visitors into the community that, will have an possible economic impact as well.
Michael, there's a lot of discussion about parking for the trail.
I've heard that.
There's none. My office is at the beginning of it and, we don't have room. A connector from here, where they park drives revenue, local revenue. And that's just something to think of. I
And
know it's a
these,
few miles off, but not to these guys that do this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nothing.
and these aren't even proposed
Right.
sidewalking paths. The most feasible option the consultants came up with was actually having a bike lane. So for bicycle users,
Right.
but no, I've heard
Yeah,
the
Bold
same.
Rock's a great example. They encourage parking there, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
Schoolhouse, we're loaded with them there,
Mhm.
but I mean, that's revenue starting here and ending here.
Mhm. I touched on this briefly in the larger map, but again, there was a lot of feedback from the community about connecting Mills River Park going north. I often see people running or walking or bird watching along Hooper Lane, connecting to some of the residential developments up there, like the farm or Hollowbrook. So that was something that was brought up multiple times in our public input sessions, was some connection up there, and that would be a separated bicycle walking side path. So obviously we do have a lot of bicycle users that use our current state road network. A lot of people bike out to the recreation area on North Mills River Road. So one item brought up by the consultants, and again, through input through the committee and the public, was having a bicycle facility, which basically means those spot improvements along North Mills River Road, could be widening a shoulder, to adding a full bike lane, but would also include things like signage to be aware of bicycles that currently use that route. That was one project that was identified. And then along that, a connector from North Mills River Road to South Mills River Road. And then one of the larger ones that I touched on briefly as part of the concept trail plan for the Hellbender Trail Network is the Mills River Valley Trail. And this is the southern portion that would basically connect from about our main intersection of Boylston Highway and 191 all the way down to the Transylvania County line. But because that's been in MPO discussions and identified for quite some time, again, at the concept level, that was included in here as well. Again, Boylston Highway being kind of the spine of Mills River. north.
So Michael, I've noticed, this is from the consultants, the estimating we're seeing on each of these.
Correct,
I assume that's pretty high level ballpark.
correct.
Okay. There's a pretty big jump from some of the other numbers there.
Big mileage jump too, though.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
So I didn't know if that is influencing the prioritizing here. This order is from public input, correct?
Correct, and steering committee input. Yes.
Okay.
You're right. There's also, I mean, I think it's a valuable project to look at for the future, but I mean, you have to recognize as well, although we have residents lining Boylston Highway as we go south, the density of those residents decreases the further south you go. Not to say those people don't deserve some type of bike ped facility. But again, the justification to pull a trail all the way down to the
Right.
county line is more for regional interconnectivity and
Right.
less about serving those residents right there on the road.
If you're looking at the return on investment as, if you're gauging that by citizen usage, then the return is on these smaller local by a mile.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the last one we had was the Ocklawaha Greenway connector. I think I alluded that the Butler Bridge Road one could get you over there as well. But again, through public input, this came up a couple more times, having a connector over 280. In terms of spanning the French Broad River, we hadn't really gotten to that point. But there is no pedestrian or bicycle infrastructure in that northern area of town. So this was one thing that was identified by the community and the consultants. Feedback on any of that? Do you want me to stop for a second or keep going?
Good job.
All right. So again, the programs and policies sections basically looks at everything that has been in the plan up to that point. And, how does Mills River plan for the future? What things in our zoning code or subdivision code need to be changed to encourage more bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, or encourage people to get out and bike and walk around the town more safely. So really that whole section is about not implementation, but recommendations on program and policy changes. The implementation plan, one of the shorter sections, it basically talks about, how we could move forward with some of these projects in the future. That's pretty straightforward. And then there's the closing section, which I don't really need to summarize, but basically wraps the whole plan together. So that's my high level overview. I'm happy to take questions about anything, feedback, comments, but I'll defer to the chair from here.
Michael, is that something we could pull off the website to keep? None of us have read the 125 pages. I'm sure Jim will by the next time, but you know,
Well,
this would help
I couldn't get.
steer me.
I want to get the whole 124 pages printed. And I always do that. But I wasn't able this time.
Well, as a guide for me to compartmentalize this, is this something I can grab
We'd
from
be
you
happy to-
somewhere?
We'd be happy to send that
I'd
out.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any? Any further discussion? I think for me, one of the things we might think about is, what can we do? You know, my opinion, the planning board is we help guide growth in the direction that we as a town want to grow. As part of that, when there's especially a large development or a large commercial development, perhaps if they're able to put in, if it's reasonable for them to put in some infrastructure, then that should be part of that, in my opinion. If, at the very least, maybe some right of way, because that's a huge cost. And, you know, I spent 6 years in the city of Asheville, and pretty much every project had to build sidewalk. Well, out here, that may not be feasible. There are places in Asheville where there's a 300 feet of sidewalk and there's nothing on either end. But the mindset is, well, the next place that develops will connect. Don't know if that type of thinking is feasible here, just throwing it out, or at the very least, the right of way, so that when the future improvement does come, the right of way's there. And as part of a couple of, 30, 40 acre development, maybe an extra 10 feet of right of way is a reasonable ask.
Jeff, you know this, a lot of our roads here don't have rights of way on it.
That's correct.
Schoolhouse Road is ditch to ditch. I think you DOTers call it.
Yeah,
So,
we call it maintain. I do know there's some section, because my mom did sign some right of way over. She said, they keep me asking for right of way. I said, sign it.
right.
You know, if you want this curve straightened out someday, sign it now. And maintain right of way is really hard to improve a roadway on, because it's what it is. It's maintained right of way. I don't know that there's ever been a definition that would hold up in court. We used to say it's as far as you can reach with a long arm mower. It's what is routinely maintained by the DOT. That's to keep the road, and it's common sense that that would be a right of way, but that is not a legal piece of property. It's an easement. Because we had the two types of right of way that we called right of way, but one is just an easement. It's permission. Your property line goes to the center of the roadway. Or there's right of way out here on 191 or 280 that was purchased or condemned at one time. And that's a fee simple right of way, where the state is actually the property owner and a person's property just goes up to that right of way. So, in a situation where we have a development coming in and it's a pretty large development, maybe the sidewalk to nowhere isn't the best idea for us, but at least the right of way, where when the time comes and we implement this plan, we're already ahead by not having to go and purchase or condemn right of way. The right of way's there. Something to think about. And I'm not sure how we would implement that or get that into the requirements. I do know there are inside developments, there's requirements for right of way and for infrastructure for sidewalks, et cetera. But, on property frontage, is that a place to do it? Any further,
I agree with what you're talking about, the concept, and that's what we need to be thinking about, but at this point, I think I'd like to see us postpone this till next meeting.
I agree. Is there a motion to postpone this
I'll
until
make that motion.
next meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded the motion?
I made the motion.
Right, who seconded it?
One of them.
Okay. I agree. So if you don't mind, next meeting, we'll talk about this a little further and possibly give a recommendation.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for your
Yes, thank you.
hard work on this and being part of this. I think this is an exciting Exciting time, exciting thing to be part of. Okay, are there any additional items?
Thanks for stepping up, Joe.
That's a little early to be saying that, but I appreciate that.
It's a job well done.
I see. Okay, well then that's fair enough. I'll accept that. If you are planning to say that, let me make sure my wife's got my cat near the computer so he can hear that too. 'Cause right now he doesn't believe anything good. All right. Is there anyone from the public would like to speak? I know this is a little out of order. I don't know that we have anyone signed in, but thankful for everyone that showed up. Are there any comments, anything? Okay,
I'll make a motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Uh,